Welcome back to Journey to Novelist. This channel is devoted to new writers and those writers new to pursuing the goal of becoming a published author. And one of the most recent videos I've done is all about writing software, and I came up with 30 titles that are available for those people writing long fiction, or rather novels, that will help you with your writing process. And there are 30 of them, but they are basically broken down into two categories. One is the online apps, those that run in a browser, and most of your file is stored online somewhere, and those that are downloaded to your device and installed there, with your files being locally. Now, when I was doing that list, I noticed that a lot of these online apps serve the same purpose. They create a writing environment for you to plot, plan, and write your novel, or at least to write your novel in. And so I thought it would be good to go back and compare some of these softwares to each other and see what the differences is and which one might serve you best. So we're going to take a look at those, but how we're going to do it is I came up with this wheel that I put all the ones I found in there, plus one I found after I did that video, and I randomly spun them, and we came up with some head-to-head matchups. So our first matchup is going to be between Dabble and Motif. Now, both of these are, like I said, online softwares, and I'm going to try to do this video as quickly as possible, so we're not going to go into a lot of detail, but we're going to kind of show you some bits and pieces as we go along. And I'm going to try to give you some information on how they handle these particular tasks, because that's how we're going to approach it. We're going to approach it as tasks that you do whenever you're writing a novel that you want your software to help you out with. The first task is a series of things that you do when you're starting up your project, like creating your novel project, possibly even creating a series that you can put your novel under if it's part of a group of books. Also, you want to keep track of your pen name, maybe the genre, the date, the title, and the subtitle of your stories, and maybe even have some sort of built-in story structure to start to keep you organized and making sure you hit all those beats. So those are the kind of things we want to do in this first task, as we call it. Now, I'm going to try to award points. This section should be worth around 3 points, so we'll see how these do, and I'll try to give you the points as we go along. So I've loaded up both those softwares in my browser, and I have both of them here, Motif and Dabble, and we're going to start with Dabble. Now, I'm working on the 14-day free trial of Dabble. The cost for Dabble is a little bit high for me to buy it outright, so I'm not going to actually buy it, so we're just trying to get it done within this 14-day window. Now, the first thing is setting up that novel, and right here there's big plus, easy to see. This is a very clean screen, but there's where you click to start a blank novel. But we want to know whether or not we have templates we can use, and there's something here that says show templates. So when we drop this down, we see some templates, but be warned, these are not structure templates, they're more formatting templates, so they're not what we want. So we're going to go ahead and close that, and we're just going to start with a blank novel. So here we go, we have a blank novel, first part of it down. Let's go ahead and go to Motif and see how easy it is to set up a project there. So here again, we have a button for a new project. For Motif, we actually have some templates listed here. The hero's journey, the 3-act structure, and a memoir. Now, we're going to go ahead and pick the hero's journey. We're going to start our story with that. We click it, and right here is our place for our story. We have a project started. Now, next thing we want to do is be able to put in the title, subtitle, and author, as well as maybe the genre and a date for our stories. Here in Dabble, we have right here a title page, so it says untitled book right here, so we're going to title it. Now, this was a randomly selected name with just a random word generator giving me 2 words. So that's the name. Now it's like, okay, now I need some sort of subtitle. Oh, right there we can put a subtitle, so we're going to put in a lost in between novel. Now I need the author. It says unknown author, so we'll put that there. And there. There's no place to put a genre and there's no place to put a date, but we at least have our title, subtitle, and author listed. Now let's see if we can do the same in Motif. Now, right here is a place I can put the name of my story. So we're just going to put the title here. Same title. Where can I put the subtitle and all that? There is no place for it. I'll just tell you that. There's no place for it in here. The best you can do in Motif is to go ahead and add another document. And it puts it at the bottom. I'm going to call this front matter. And I could just type the information here. And I could give it some quick formatting, which we'll do later. So no actual place for it. So let's go ahead and try to do the last thing, and that is find some place to put a genre or date. It's not here. There's no place in this. But if we go over to project settings, we will see that the project name is listed now. And if I go back to my list of projects, you'll see my book now has the name right there on it. For Motif, here is my front matter. My title's here. If I go back to my start, there is my story. Now I looked here for any project settings, but there's a cover and not much else here that I could do. And the cover is a premium feature. And for Motif, I'm actually working in the completely free version, so I do have some limitations there. So let's go ahead and go back to Dabble, and I'm going to award both of these projects 2 points for the setup. Dabble 2 because it does have a place to put all the subtitles and the author right there. For Motif, it does have a place to put the title, but it also has that story structure that is built in, so it gets a point for that as well. So let's go ahead and look at our second task. And our second task here is the plotting and planning of our story, because we want to be able to now lay out our major plot points, story arcs, maybe develop some subplots, and any other tools for plotting and planning. And we're going to see what kind of tools these two programs have for that. So let's go ahead and jump back in, and we're going to look at Dabble. So we're going to go back into our story. And right away we see we have a section here for plot. And it has a plot for Deadpan Promotion, and it lists one scene and no plot line listed. So if we open this, you see this is sort of a grid section. So I could start a plot line here for the hero arc. And I could actually go over here and start another arc for the romance arc. Maybe those are the two arcs I have that I'm dealing with. And then I could start adding scenes for these particular things, plot point actions. So I could say here, maybe this is the where he is offered a promotion. And maybe over here in the romance arc, he has a point where a girl flirts with him. And then there's a point maybe where he gives in and takes promotion. Those are all things that happen. And then here you'll see the scene is listed for the hero's arc and for the romance arc. And I can also have my different chapters or scenes listed here. So I could add a new scene for chapter 1. And you can use this however you want with placing these cards. If you have a note card system, then this will probably help you out quite a lot. So let's go jump over to Motif and see what they have available for plotting and planning. So we're going to jump back into our book, Deadpan Promotion. And we're going to come here to our outline, and you'll see that it put all of the pieces of our structure right here, easy to find. And then they have this planning tab, and we have a little chart here that shows us what the hero's journey looks like. And we can move this around, we can zoom out or in, and we could even start adding notes around it about different things that we want to keep track of. So we could expand that. We could also even add a new freeform board, which some people might like to have, and maybe even if we were the type of people that like to, let me get the wrong pen here, draw out an actual physical map. Maybe we have like a little place here with like a little lake, and we say, well, he journeys over here, and then there's this cliff he has to jump off of. And that's another way of plotting, is doing a graphical representation of the story progress. Those are both available. So I have to give both of these a lot of credit for having something for plotting and planning. Now with the Motif, you can also, here in the actual sections that it's set up for you, there is a summary that has what you should write. So that's this first part of this text already in the summary. So you could use these document notes to actually start doing those plot points, the same as in Dabble. So here I could do the arrives at work point, and maybe here I could add a offered promotion, and maybe also in the same section flirts with girl right there. And those could be my particular plot points for this particular section. So it does have something you can use for doing your plotting and planning. I will give, for this section, Motif is actually going to get 4 points because it does have that structure to build off of, and this planning, these planning boards, and Dabble is going to get the 3 points because it has that plot grid system in the note cards. So let's go ahead and come back once again to our next task, and we're going to look at character setting creation, how you can create those characters, your different settings, objects that are important, and we want to see whether or not they have any type of questionnaires or templates to follow, and then any place to put images, maps, or notes, or things like that. That's what we're looking for in this next section. So let's go ahead and take a look here at Dabble and see what they have available. And right off we see that there's a place here that says characters. So if you click in this, you'll see we have main characters and supporting characters, and we could also even add a new cast of characters if we wanted. Right here, this is a new cast, which would add another grouping for characters. So now I have 3 groupings. Now I can start creating characters here. It says unnamed characters, so my main character is named Devin. We put that there, and then I could add some notes or add an image for Devin, or I could come down here and give him a role. Here's protagonist. And then I could just start typing whatever I need about Devin. Same thing with supporting characters. Now I have a supporting character named Jolie. And so I could go in here for Jolie and say that that's the love interest. And I could do that, and basically it's a free form place to write all of your text. Now it also has this story notes section with world building, and this section could pretty much be used for all those other items like your settings. So the office, or I could create another one that is for the gate key, which is an important item in the story. And then I could add information about them here in the list. So that's how it handles the characters and other item and people that populate your story. So let's see how Motif does it. And we're going to come here to Motif. We're going to go to the planning stage out here. And you see that we have some story elements. They're right here. Or if we're over here in our writing environment, you'll see there's this little section here for story elements, and they're on the side. So you can use either one to get to the different elements. So here we have a place for hero. So if we click on hero, it gives all the information we have listed for hero. If we come back here to the planning and click hero, we get the actual hero card. And this is going to be Devin, of course. And we see we have the role listed right here, and we can give a brief description. We can add additional cards. And then there's placeholders to give goals, descriptions, and backstory. So it's some sort of a guide to make sure you get your information in there correctly. And you could add an image if it wasn't locked. So there is an option in there for that. But you have all your different characters. You can add additional characters. So we could go ahead and add Jolie. And select a role here, in this case love interest. And fill out all the information about Jolie or add cards. We also have places for like the ordinary world, or I could even add another setting, and this will be the office. Plus I could add objects, and I could say this is the gate key that was so important, and list that. Now in the free version you only get 30 of these objects, so you have to be kind of smart about how you use them. And that is Motif, but it has that in there. So I'm awarding 4 points, I think, to Motif and 3 points to Dabble for the way they handle characters and things, because Motif does have some templating and all the places to put the various items, but Dabble does too. It's just doesn't have the template section, so it loses a point for not having a predefined like template to follow. We're going to move right on to our next item, and that's going to be the writing environment. We're going to be writing a story, so we want to see what the writing environment is like. We want to be able to create chapters and scenes and parts of stories, maybe rearrange them, type and edit text, maybe do some formatting with bolding and highlighting, and then we want to look to see what kind of backgrounds, fonts, margins, and stuff like that we have when we're in our writing environment in case we need to change it. So let's go ahead and go back and take a look at those things, starting with Dabble. Now we're going to come in here to our first chapter, and we're going to say, well, first of all, we want to be able to create a chapter. Well, that's pretty easy. We can just come here to the book actions, and we can just say add a chapter, and there's a new chapter. Then under that chapter, we could easily just say add a new scene, and there's a new scene. So we could put something here like offered promotion is the title of the scene, and then we start writing about the boss calls him into the office. And you see it fades back to a focus mode whenever you're writing for a few minutes. So that could be something that's pretty handy for your writing environment. Your notes are right here on the side. If you come back here to your plot, you see that those scenes automatically get added to your grid, so you can kind of keep track of them. So that's adding chapters. Now for creating parts, you could add a new part here and actually arrange them. So if I wanted this to be part 1 and I wanted certain chapters there, I could then add another part, put it down here, and chapter 4 started in part 2. So you can nest your different parts. So this might be your ordinary world. Just like in the Motif one. So you can do that pretty easily. Now in Motif, we're going to come back over here and see what it has. Now it has the writing space here. For creating chapters, it's easy enough. You just click add new and add a new document, and that will add a new part to it. It puts it at the bottom, and you just drag it to where you need. So you can do that pretty easily, and you just name it, and we have subsections here which would be folders. So there's the departure, the initiation, and the return. That works pretty easily. And here's where you would be typing your story. Let's start with call to adventure here, and we would want to come down below what we're doing for the notes, which we might like delete these because it is in the synopsis for what we're trying to write. And we could actually start writing our story right here. And I could just take and delete this right here. And my notes are right here in case I want to access them. So that's pretty easy to do. Now, I could rearrange things just by dragging and dropping. I could move them into other sections. So that's all there. We have parts and we have documents which will contain your chapters or scenes. That's how that works. So both of them do that pretty easily. So they both get 1 point for adding chapters and scenes and parts. And for arranging, they each get a point for that. Now the text save locations. Motif has a place here where you hit file and you can download, and you can download right to a Word document. It downloads it, and then you can find it, one part of it right there. And Dabble can do the same thing where you could be in a section, let's find somewhere I wrote something, and right here is the export and to Word document right there, and it will do the same thing. Now as far as fonts and background, for Dabble I don't see a lot of tools for like changing the size of your text or anything like that. They do have under your settings, under your preferences, some dark theme or light theme right there. And under the project settings here, there are some settings for how you want it to look when you export it out. But again, nothing really here as to how you want it to look. Right here we have our manuscript and we're showing the different chapters and scenes. And they both have that focus mode. So whenever you're in here writing, you can also hit this focus mode here. And you can do the same thing in Motif with this focus mode here. So they get the same number of points for that particular feature. And that is the writing environment. Motif is getting 4 points and Dabble is getting 3 points. As far as for spell check and things like that, this is where they're going to differ a little bit. They both have auto spell check turned on, so if it's spelled wrong, you should end up getting the highlights and being able to right click and choose the right word. You can do the same thing in here in Dabble. So if I type something wrong, then it should give me a highlight saying that it is typed incorrectly. Let's toggle the features. Spell checking is turned on. So there you go. And also grammar checking right there. And under word tools you have a thesaurus, so you could get some information. So Dabble actually gets a point for having a thesaurus. And Motif doesn't seem to have a thesaurus, so they both end up with 4 points for the editing environment. So let's go look at our final task that we're going to do, and this is the project and file management section. Now we are already seen that we can export text, so we're not going to look at that again. They both can export text, so they both get a point for being able to export their text. And they can both export both the full document or just a piece of the document. The next thing is, can they import the text? Because if you already have some text written, you might want to import that as part of your story. So let's go take a look at that. And right here under manuscript, under the story here, there is nothing. So all you can do here is export. We go to Motif and maybe go to the manuscript here. Right here we have upload a document. So if I do upload a document and I browse and I find a document, in this case I'm going to do this import test. There, upload. It's going to create 2 documents for me based on my imported text called The Gate and Bad Day. And it's under a section called Imported Text, so I could take those then and move them around. So Motif will actually import text and add it to your document. Motif does have a print function, which is going to let you print to a PDF. And let's see, so no printing, it seems, from Dabble. If it's in there, it's not easy to find. As far as backup and versioning, well, you can always use the output to Word document as a way to back up your stories so that you don't lose your progress in case something happens to the system. And I recommend you do that if you can for any of these online editors, because you never know when you're going to wake up one morning and find that that particular service has gone out of business. So you have to be aware of that. But in Motif, there is a version section. So you can come in here and you can see the version of the particular document you're looking at. And for the free version, you have, I believe it is 7 days of versioning. Motif is going to get a point for having versions, and I'm going to give Motif a point for having printing as well. Now, a few other notes about these softwares. They both have some goal setting. Here we have a word count thing. So we could set goals for this, and maybe we want to say that for Deadpan Promotion, we're aiming for 50,000 words for our first draft. So we could set that, and now we have a goal, and it's going to give us kind of a counter there. For Dabble, it also has some goal setting features, I believe. Right here, it lists it, and you can choose a few things here. We want to have a daily goal of maybe 1,000 words, and we're going to pick days that we're off. So, and we're just going to save the changes, and then we have some goals here. It also has a timer, so if you want to do some self sprints and things like that, you could use this timer. And so for bonus points, I'm going to go ahead and give Dabble a bonus point for having the timer, because that could be really handy, and I did not see a timer in Motif. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and give Dabble 2 points for its setting skill. I think of these 2 different programs, Motif has a little bit more to offer than Dabble. And Motif, you can use a certain part of it for free with a limitation of you can only have 30 items in your particular story, and those 30 items are things like your story elements here. So right here it says I've reached my limit, but if I want to come in here and I say, well, I don't really need the mentor figure, I could like remove the mentor figure and set it to trash, and now it says I have 29. So if you use this only to keep track of the important elements, 30 might be enough to get you by. And then again, Motif is $5 a month or $60 a year, and Dabble Writing is $9 a month for their basic plan, and $29 a month for their premium or the most expensive plan, with a standard plan at $90 in between there, where Motif has a free version that's $0 with that 30 element cap there, or it's $5 a month billed at $60 a year annually. That's the side-by-side comparison. The winner of this particular round is Motif. So come back again next time, and we'll be going over 2 more of the softwares that I found in this list. Overall, there's going to be 6 matchups. That's it for today. Please like and subscribe if this video was helpful for you. And I'll see you back here, hopefully, for the next matchup.